If there ever is a lift proposal on the table, I'm instructed to say, and I believe this, that Black Diamond opposes this lift. But there is a caveat there. And I did a survey today around Black Diamond, and we do all love Alta. I just want to make that clear. But as Anno pointed out, and I want to reiterate, the most important thing that ever happens if this proposal comes on the table is the public process. And it's not so pretty. And at the end of my talk, you'll see that it can get pretty vicious and pretty heated. And the point of the public process is that's where the rubber hits the road. You can listen tonight to listen to these issues, you know, take them with a grain of salt or take them at heart, but you got to do your homework. Because if you care about something, it all happens there, and you either win or lose. I have a master's degree primarily in ski area planning, and like I said, I worked my way, I was a ski patrolman, but I worked my way up to be the planner at both Squaw Valley and Kirkwood, and I was involved in a lot of ski area development issues on the side of the ski area. Now, after being in the ski area industry for a long time, and when I was working as a planner at Kirkwood, we had to hire lawyers because there are all these lawsuits, and I would feed the lawyers with the information, and they'd be making all the money. So that was the turning point for me. I decided to go to law school. And oddly enough, I'd only been a lawyer for 1 month when I became embroiled in opposing the resort at Squaw Creek and Squaw Valley. I lived in Squaw Valley, and like Flagstaff or whatever, it's one of the largest alpine meadow wetlands in America. And they were going to build a resort, a number of ski lifts, and a big hotel, which there was really no way to oppose it, but as a peripheral to that, or corollary to it, and intrinsic to the project, because they wanted a four-season resort, they were going to turn this meadow into a golf course. And it was a meadow that was highly used. We skied in the winter, we ran, I took my dog in it, etc. So it was very dear to me. I like Anno and I like Alta, and I'm not saying, you know, that you can't trust anybody in this kind of circumstance, but I learned the hard way not to trust anybody. I was a new lawyer, didn't know anything. I was going to go get what's called a temporary restraining order so they couldn't put D9s and destroy the meadow. And so I called the attorney on the other side and said, I'm going in for a TRO and whatever. And he goes, nah, don't worry about it, Rick. We're not going to do anything this weekend. You know, just next Monday, go for a preliminary injunction, you know, and which is an easier thing to get or whatever. Well, what happened, that was on Friday, and obviously you can't get a hold of a judge on Saturday and Sunday because they're golfing. They marched about 5 D9s into the meadow and tore it up. Monday I went into court and I tried to get an injunction, but to get an injunction you have to prove 2 things: success on the merits and irreparable harm. And their attorney sat there and argued, there's no irreparable harm, we already destroyed the meadow. And guess what? I learned a really tough lesson. And I consider myself very zen or whatever, and I like people, but I just, when you get into these kind of processes with money involved and whatever, you have to do so with your eyes open. And once again, I want to say, I don't tell these stories because I don't trust these people. I've just spent 6 months or so on Mayor Caroon's committee to work on wilderness designation for the Wasatch. And what became apparent is there are a lot of constituencies here in Utah, as you know, and some of them are conflicting. I mean, as Andrew pointed out, backcountry with heli skiing, the ski areas want to all, I think, expand in some areas that are primary backcountry skiing areas and accessible. So we had to work on consensus, and I I commend everybody that was on there because we were trying to find some balance. Our belief at Black Diamond was we already have a pretty good balance and we should leave it as the status quo. I don't know if that'll happen. Now, I'm not here at Black Diamond for representing Black Diamond just because we sell backcountry gear. Because we don't. Now we sell stuff that you use at the ski areas and we make alpine boots. But there's no doubt that backcountry skiing is growing, and it's growing here. And maybe with the new world economy and the tightening of money, it might even grow more. At least that's what we're counting on. You know, as Andrew pointed out, I mean, Flagstaff is an important thing. I've heard it referred to as the holy grail for backcountry access in the Wasatch. And I know this, to go back to the Squaw Valley case, we essentially lost. I mean, we got an environmental concession. They had to put it in a links golf course. But I personally could never go back to Squaw Valley and look at a golf course where this meadow should be. And if I did, I know I would have these senile comments like, oh, I used to be here and run in the meadow. And I don't want to have those same sort of comments about Flagstaff. It's a beautiful area. You know, I don't buy the argument of skier compaction. Like I said, I saw the Alpine Meadows avalanche. And I do believe that there are other alternative methods. You know, the argument in the public process is always going to be Gas X costs $6 million. Well, what do you think a lift costs these days? And I have to admit, I don't appreciate the unsightliness of those Gas X, what do you call them? Things. But you know, you got to think of the alternative. There's no doubt that Flagstaff is an icon. You know, we have a lot of skiers in Utah. They put us on the map and they generate a lot of money, but you know what? So do the Wasatch Mountains, and so does the backcountry. And the Outdoor Retailer Show is here because of the Wasatch and largely because of the backcountry. And it brings in $50 million a year. And it's not just when the lift is there, it's not just the winter use. I mean, Flagstaff is heavily used in the summer, and it is a gateway. I think if the public process comes, I'm really impressed that everybody's here, and I encourage you two things. Participate and be informed. The power is in the public on these. And I hope I've given you some perspective on the kind of issues and circumstances that might arise in our feeling at Black Diamond on a cost-benefit basis, you know, 50 years from now or 100 years from now, what we want our kids or other people to see in the mountains, that we don't want them to see a lift. And I can assure you that Black Diamond, you know, I'm an employee, and I'm sure Peter Metcalf's going to say, do all you can, you know, to oppose the lift. And I will. And I encourage everybody else to at least, you know, follow their heart on that and do what's necessary.